The millionaire froze when he saw a waitress and a little boy who looked exactly like him. It was the same woman he had abandoned 10 years ago. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy. The story. The morning rush at Charlie's Diner was in full swing. Emily Parker moved between tables with practiced efficiency, her auburn hair pulled back in a neat ponytail that swung with each step. For 7 years, she'd worked in this modest Kansas City establishment, where locals came for hearty breakfasts and friendly conversation. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and offered flexible hours, essential for a single mom with a 10-year-old son. "Order up for table 6, called Marge from behind the counter. Emily grabbed the tray of pancakes and coffee, weaving through the maze of tables. Table 6 was near the window, where soft morning light filtered through the blinds. As she approached, she glanced down at the ticket to confirm the order. "Here's your blueberry pancakes and—" The words died in her throat as she looked up. There he was, 10 years older but unmistakable. The same chiseled jawline, now more defined. The same intense, hazel eyes now framed by subtle lines. His dark hair was shorter, more polished, but with the same rebellious waves she used to run her fingers through. Ethan Miller, the man who had promised her the world at 20, then vanished without a trace. The coffee pot in Emily's hand trembled, slightly hot liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. She set down the pancakes with mechanical precision, fighting to keep her expression neutral despite the hurricane of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "Would you like anything else, sir?" she managed to ask, the sir feeling foreign on her tongue when addressing him. Ethan looked up from his phone, distracted. "Just the check when—" His voice cut off abruptly as recognition dawned. "Emily?" She nodded stiffly, unable to form words as memories flooded back. Moonlit walks along the river, whispered promises, plans for a future that never materialized. "Didn't know you were in Kansas City," he said, his composed businessman demeanor momentarily shaken. "It's been what, 10 years? 9 years? 8 months, Emily corrected before she could stop herself. "Can I get you anything else?" Before Ethan could respond, the bell above the diner door chimed. Emily's heart stopped as her son Lucas burst in, his backpack bouncing against his narrow shoulders. "Mom, Mrs. Henderson let us out early because the science lab flooded," Lucas called out, racing toward the counter where he usually waited for her shift to end. Emily watched in horror as Ethan's gaze shifted to Lucas, his expression transforming from surprise to shock. She knew exactly what he was seeing, the same hazel eyes as his own, the same dimple in the left cheek when he smiled, the same determined set of the jaw. Ethan stood abruptly, coffee forgotten, as he stared at the boy. "Emily," he said, his voice barely audible over the diner's clatter. "That boy." "I have other tables," Emily interrupted, turning away quickly. "Marge will bring your check." As she retreated to the kitchen, heart pounding against her ribs, Emily felt Ethan's eyes, following her. The past she'd carefully packed away was suddenly violently present again. Through the service window, she watched as Ethan continued to stare at Lucas, who had settled at the counter with a comic book, completely unaware of the man whose blood ran through his veins. Ethan pulled out his phone, snapped a discreet photo of the boy, then left money on the table, far more than his bill required. As he walked out, his eyes met Emily's through the kitchen window, a silent promise that this unexpected reunion was far from over. Emily leaned against the cool metal prep table, legs suddenly weak. 10 years of carefully constructed stability threatened to crumble in a single morning. Lucas was asking Marge for a chocolate milk, blissfully unaware that his entire world had just shifted on its axis. Because Ethan Miller, tech innovator, millionaire, and the man whose existence she'd reduced to "your father wasn't ready for a family" in Lucas's bedtime questions, was back. And judging by the determination in his eyes as he left, he wasn't going anywhere this time. As the lunch rush finally tapered off, Emily's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She kept dropping silverware, earning concerned glances from Marge. You look like you've seen a ghost, honey, Marge said, refilling the salt shakers. A ghost. That's exactly what Ethan Miller was. A ghost from her past suddenly made flesh. Emily glanced toward the window where Lucas sat doing homework, his brow furrowed in concentration just like Ethan's used to when they'd study together. I'm fine, Emily lied. Just tired. As she wiped down tables, memories she'd locked away years ago came flooding back. She was 20 again, a scholarship student at Kansas State, meeting Ethan in Economics 101. He'd asked to borrow her notes, though she later learned he had perfect grades and didn't need them. His family owned Miller Technologies, but he'd never flaunted his wealth, driving an old Jeep and wearing faded jeans like any college student. That summer had been magical. Picnics by Clinton Lake, midnight conversations about everything and nothing, plans for traveling the world together. Ethan had dreams beyond his family's company: humanitarian technology, sustainable energy solutions. You make me want to be better, Em, he'd told her one starlit night, her head resting on his chest. With you, I'm not just some rich kid coasting on my family name. She'd believed him, believed in them. Then came his father's sudden death in September. Ethan had gone to New York for the funeral, promising to return in a week. He never came back. His phone was disconnected. Her emails went unanswered. When she finally gathered the courage to visit the Miller estate outside Kansas City, his mother Vivian had greeted her with glacial politeness. Ethan's moved on, Vivian had informed her, elegant in her designer morning clothes. He's taking over the company now. The summer dalliance with the scholarship girl made for a charming distraction, but surely you didn't think it was serious. Week later, Emily discovered she was pregnant. Her second visit to the Miller estate, visibly pregnant and desperate, ended with security escorting her to the gate while Vivian watched from the window. The final visit resulted in Vivian offering her a check, a substantial one, on the condition she'd leave Kansas City and never contact Ethan again. Emily had torn up the check in Vivian's face. She'd had her pride even then. Mom, can I have a milkshake? Lucas's voice yanked her back to the present. I finished my math worksheet. Emily smoothed his unruly hair. So like Ethan's. Sure, buddy. Let me see that work. As Lucas proudly displayed his completed homework, Emily's phone vibrated, with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. I'll be at Riverside Park at 7, please come. Ethan. Her stomach lurched. How had he gotten her number so quickly? Then again, when you had millions at your disposal, finding a phone number was probably child's play. Mom? Are you okay? Lucas asked, his hazel eyes, Ethan's eyes filled with concern. Emily forced a smile. Just fine. Let's get you that milkshake. Then we need to stop by Mrs. Wilson's. She's watching you tonight. I have something I need to do. As dusk settled over Riverside Park, Emily paced nervously near the fountain. She'd chosen this spot intentionally. Public, well lit, and far from the secluded bench where, a decade ago, Ethan had first told her he loved her. When his tall figure appeared on the path, Emily's heart betrayed her with a sudden leap. He wore casual clothes now, jeans and a simple button-down, looking more like the college boy she'd known than the suited businessman from the diner. You came, he said simply, stopping a respectful distance away. Emily crossed her arms. What do you want, Ethan? The truth. His voice was quiet but intense. The boy at the diner, Lucas, right? He's mine, isn't he? Emily met his gaze steadily. Yes, he's your son, though you forfeited any right to him when you disappeared 10 years ago. Ethan's face showed no surprise at the confirmation, only a complex mixture of emotions. Wonder, regret, anger. Why didn't you tell me, Emily? All these years? Emily laughed, bitterly. Didn't tell you? I called you dozens of times. I wrote letters. I came to your house. Your mother made it crystal clear you wanted nothing to do with me or your child. Confusion crossed Ethan's features. What are you talking about? I never received any calls or letters, and you never came to the house. I would remember that. Your mother turned me away. 3 times. Emily's voice hardened with remembered humiliation. The last time she offered me money to disappear. Ethan paled visibly in the park's fading light. My mother told me you'd left Kansas, that you'd gone back to Oklahoma for a better scholarship. When I tried contacting you, your number was disconnected. For the first time in 10 years, doubt crept into Emily's certainty about what had happened between them. That's impossible, she whispered. I never changed my number until months later. They stared at each other, the fountain's gentle splashing, filling the silence between them as a decade of misunderstandings began to unravel. The implications of their conversation hung heavy in the evening air. Emily's mind raced, trying to reconcile this new information with the narrative she'd lived with for 10 years. Say I believe you, she said cautiously, that you didn't know about my attempts to contact you. It doesn't change the fact that you have a 10-year-old son who's never known his father. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, that familiar gesture that made Emily's heart twist with unwanted recognition. I want to meet him. Properly, he said, his voice firm but pleading. Not as a stranger in a diner, but as his father. Emily shook, her head immediately. Absolutely not. Lucas is happy, well-adjusted. I won't upend his life because you suddenly discovered his existence. Don't I have rights? He's my son too, Ethan countered, a flash of the privileged young man she once knew breaking through his composed exterior. Rights? Emily's voice rose despite her efforts to remain calm. Rights are earned, Ethan. Where were you when he had pneumonia at 3 and I couldn't afford the hospital bill? Where were you for his first day of kindergarten when he asked why other kids had daddies and he didn't? Ethan flinched at each question but held his ground. That's not fair. I didn't know he existed. Life isn't fair, Emily replied, the bitterness of years as a struggling single mother evident in her tone. I learned that lesson when I was 20 and pregnant, alone because the man I loved vanished without a trace. They stood in tense silence, until Ethan spoke again, his voice softer. What have you told him about me? Emily sighed, her anger deflating slightly. That his father was someone I loved in college, that he wasn't ready for a family. I've never vilified you to him if that's what you're worried about. Thank you for that at least. Ethan took a tentative step closer. Emily, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but please, give me a chance to know my son, to be part of his life. Emily studied his face, searching for the sincerity she once trusted implicitly. The park lights illuminated his features, older, more weathered, but still the face that appeared in her dreams far more often than she'd cared to admit. I need time to think, she finally said. This isn't just about you and me. It's about what's best for Lucas. Ethan nodded, visibly restraining himself from pushing further. Here's my card. All my numbers. Personal cell, office, home. Call me when you're ready to talk again. He hesitated, then added, I'm staying in Kansas City. For as long as it takes. Emily took the card, noticing the embossed CEO title beneath his name. You got what you wanted then, she observed quietly. Running the family business. A shadow crossed Ethan's face. Not exactly how I planned it. Dad's death changed everything. He paused, clearly weighing his next words. I came back for you, Emily, after the funeral. But you were gone, according to my mother. Emily's hand tightened around his business card. I never left until Lucas was almost 1. Your mother lied to both of us. The realization settled between them. 10 years lost to manipulation and deceit. As Emily turned to leave, Ethan called after her. He has my eyes. And that little crease between his eyebrows when he concentrates. Emily froze. You noticed that in the few seconds you saw him? I notice everything about him. Ethan replied simply. He's perfect, Emily. Despite herself, Emily felt tears threatening. Yes, he is. Good night, Ethan. She walked away quickly, not trusting herself to say more. The business card burned in her palm, a tangible connection to the man she'd spent a decade trying to forget, the man who was now determined to become part of their carefully constructed life. Back at Mrs. Wilson's apartment, Emily found Lucas asleep on the couch, his science textbook still open on his chest. As she gently removed the book, He stirred. "Mom," he mumbled sleepily. "Did you finish your errand?" Emily brushed his dark hair from his forehead. "Yes, sweetie. Time to go home." As they walked the 3 blocks to their small apartment, Lucas suddenly asked, "Mom, do you believe in coincidences?" Emily's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Henderson was talking about it in science. How sometimes things that seem random actually have patterns we just can't see yet. He yawned widely. Like how the universe might be organizing things behind the scenes. Emily squeezed his hand, thinking of Ethan appearing after all these years. "I think sometimes life surprises us in ways we couldn't have imagined." Lucas nodded, sagely. That's kind of what she said, too. Later, after tucking Lucas in, Emily sat at their tiny kitchen table, Ethan's business card propped against the salt shaker. The decision before her seemed impossible. Continue protecting Lucas from potential disappointment, or give him the chance to know his father, a father who claimed ignorance of his existence until today. Her phone buzzed with a text from the Yo. "Same unknown number. Whatever you decide, I want you to know I'm not the same person who left 10 years ago. I want to make this right." Emily closed her eyes, the path forward still uncertain, but the first steps already taken. 3 days passed with Ethan's business card still on Emily's kitchen table, untouched but impossible to ignore. She'd caught herself staring at it while drinking her morning coffee, debating what to do. "Earth to Mom," Lucas said, waving his hand in front of her face as he sat down for breakfast. "You're doing it again." Emily blinked. "Doing what?" "Zoning out. You've been weird since Tuesday." Lucas poured cereal into his bowl with careful precision. "Is it money stuff again? Because I don't really need those new soccer cleats." Emily sighed, heart clenched. At 10, Lucas already understood financial limitations too well. "It's not money stuff," she assured him. "Just grown-up things. And you absolutely need those cleats. Your toes are practically poking through the old ones." Lucas grinned, revealing a dimple in his left cheek that was pure Ethan. "Cool. Hey, can we go to the Science Museum Saturday? They have a new renewable energy exhibit." Before Emily could answer, her phone buzzed with a text from Marge. "Your rich admirer is back. Table 6 again. Asked specifically for you." Emily's stomach dropped. "Lucas, finish up. We need to leave early today." At the diner, Emily sent Lucas to the break room with his books before reluctantly approaching table 6. Ethan sat there, looking more casual than before, in a simple blue button-down, nursing a coffee. "This is harassment," she said quietly, standing, at a professional distance. "I told you I needed time." Ethan looked up, dark circles under his eyes suggesting sleepless nights. "I know, I'm not here to pressure you, He hesitated. "I just wanted to see you again. Make sure you're real, not some dream I conjured up." The sincerity in his voice weakened her resolve slightly. "Well, I'm real. And working. Some of us can't afford to sit in diners all morning." "Emily," he began, then stopped as he caught sight of something over her shoulder. Emily turned to see Lucas peeking out from the break room, curiosity evident on his face. "Is that him?" Ethan whispered, his expression a mixture of awe and terror. "Go back inside, Lucas," Emily called, trying to keep her voice casual. But it was too late. Lucas, never one to follow instructions completely, approached cautiously. "Mom, I finished my math," he announced, glancing curiously at Ethan. "Is this one of your customers?" Emily felt cornered. "Yes, Lucas, this is Mr. Miller. He was just leaving." Ethan extended his hand, ignoring Emily's pointed look. "It's nice to meet you, Lucas. Your mom's been taking good care of me." Lucas shook his hand with the solemn formality of a child raised to be polite to adults. "Are you new around here? I know most of Mom's regulars." "Sort of returning after a long time away," Ethan replied carefully, studying Lucas's face with barely concealed wonder. Lucas nodded sagely. "You should try the blueberry pancakes. They're the best in Kansas City. Mom says so, and she doesn't exaggerate about food." "I'll do that," Ethan promised, his voice thick with emotion. Emily placed a protective hand on Lucas's shoulder. Back to your homework, please. I'll be there in a minute. After Lucas reluctantly retreated, Emily turned to Ethan. That wasn't fair. I haven't decided anything yet. I'm sorry, Ethan said, though his expression, still fixed on the break room door, suggested he wasn't entirely regretful. He's amazing, Emily. Smart, confident. Yes, he is, Emily agreed, and I'm not going to let anyone hurt him, even his biological father. Ethan finally tore his gaze away from where Lucas had disappeared. I would never intentionally hurt him. Intentionally being the operative word, Emily countered. You haven't exactly proven yourself reliable. Ethan accepted this with a resigned nod. I understand your caution, but I'm not going anywhere. Emily, I'll be here, same table, same time, every day until you're ready to talk. True to his word, Ethan appeared every morning for the next 5 days. He ordered different items each time, left generous tips, and never approached Lucas again, respecting Emily's boundaries while making his presence impossible to ignore. On the 6th day, he didn't come. Emily told herself she was relieved, that perhaps he'd given up and returned to his wealthy life, his corporate responsibilities. Yet she found herself watching the door, her stomach sinking as the morning progressed with no sign of him. Your boyfriend stood you up? Marge asked during a lull, eyebrows raised knowingly. He's not my... Emily began automatically, then sighed. It's complicated. Honey, when a man looks at a woman the way that one looks at you, there's nothing complicated about it, Marge replied. That's the look of a man with regrets. Later that afternoon, as Emily and Lucas walked home, they passed the community center, where Lucas's science club met. A small crowd had gathered around the entrance. What's going on? Lucas wondered, standing on tiptoes to see. Emily's question was answered as the crowd parted slightly, revealing Ethan in conversation with Mr. Ramirez, the science club coordinator. Between them sat a large box marked Solar Engineering Kits. Mom, look, Lucas exclaimed. Those are the kits Mr. Ramirez said were too expensive for the club budget. Before Emily could stop him, Lucas darted forward. Mr. Ramirez, are those really for us? Ethan turned, surprise registering on his face when he saw Lucas, followed quickly by Emily. His expression became apologetic as their eyes met. Lucas, Mr. Ramirez beamed. Yes, indeed. Mr. Miller here has generously donated enough kits for the whole club. He says he's interested in supporting science education. Lucas turned to Ethan with newfound respect. You did this? That's so cool. We've been wanting these forever. As Lucas examined the kits with the other children, Ethan approached Emily, hands shoved in his pockets like a schoolboy caught misbehaving. This wasn't how I planned to tell you, he said quietly. I was going to call first. Emily crossed her arms. Is this your strategy, buying your way into his life? Ethan winced. That's not fair. I saw a flyer about the science club needing sponsors. Lucas mentioned being in science club, it seemed right. Before Emily could respond, Lucas bounded back to them. Mom, Mr. Miller knows all about renewable energy. He's going to help us with our projects. Looking between her son's excited face and Ethan's cautiously hopeful one, Emily realized her carefully constructed boundaries were already beginning to crumble. He's trying to buy Lucas's affection, Emily vented, as she aggressively wiped down the diner counter the next morning, and using the science club to do it. Marge, who'd been listening patiently to Emily's complaints for the last 15 minutes, raised an eyebrow. Sounds to me like he's trying to connect with his son through something the boy loves, she observed, refilling the sugar dispensers. Not exactly criminal behavior. Emily shot her a betrayed look. Whose side are you on? Yours, honey. Always. Yours, Marge said gently. But I've watched you raise that boy alone for 7 years. You've been both mother and father to him. Would it be so terrible for Lucas to have a man in his life who shares his interests? But it's not just any man, Emily protested. It's Ethan, who disappeared once already. From what you've told me, he didn't exactly disappear by choice, Marge pointed out. Seems like his mama had a whole lot to do with that. Emily sighed. her anger deflating slightly. The possibility that Ethan had been manipulated as much as she had was becoming harder to dismiss. The bell above the door chimed, and Emily tensed, expecting Ethan. Instead, an elegantly dressed older man entered, looking somewhat out of place in the humble diner. "I'll take this one," Marge said, grabbing a menu, but the man approached Emily directly. "Ms. Parker? I'm Thomas Wilson, Mr. Miller's driver." He extended a hand which Emily reluctantly shook. "I've been instructed to give you this." He handed Emily an envelope, then added in a lower voice, "If I may speak candidly, Ms. Parker, I've worked for the Miller family for over 30 years. I remember you from before." Emily froze. "You do?" Thomas nodded. "I drove Master Ethan to meet you several times that summer. By the lake, mostly. He was different when he was with you, happier." Emily swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you should know that when Master Ethan returned from his father's funeral, he asked me to drive him to your apartment immediately. But Mrs. Miller had told him you'd left town." His expression conveyed volumes. "I've served the family loyally, but some things weigh on the conscience." After Thomas left, Emily opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a brief note from Ethan. "Emily, I'm respecting your space, but wanted to let you know I've recused myself from the Science Club sponsorship. Mr. Ramirez will handle everything. The children shouldn't lose an opportunity because of our complicated situation. Ethan." Also enclosed was a copy of an email confirming his withdrawal, making it clear the donation would continue anonymously. Emily stared at the note, conflicted. It was a gesture of respect for her boundaries, yet the donation itself remained. "He's not making this easy, is he?" Marge commented, reading over her shoulder. "No," Emily agreed softly. "He's not." That evening, as Emily helped Lucas with his homework, her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Emily, this is Denise Kelly, Lucas's science teacher." The woman sounded apologetic. "I hope it's okay that I called. Mr. Ramirez gave me your number." "Is he everything all right?" Emily asked, immediately concerned. "Oh yes, I'm actually calling about the scholarship opportunity for the Summer Science Academy at State University." Emily frowned. "What scholarship?" "The one Lucas applied for," Denise explained. "His application was exceptional, detailed observations on how the solar kits could be modified for greater efficiency. The selection committee was very impressed." Emily glanced at Lucas, who was suddenly very focused on his textbook, a telltale flush creeping up his neck. "I see," she said carefully. "And when did Lucas submit this application?" "Yesterday. Mr. Miller helped him with the technical specifications, but the ideas were all Lucas's." After ending the call, Emily crossed her arms and fixed her son with a stern look. "Lucas James Parker. Care to explain?" Lucas bit his lip. "I was going to tell you. It just happened really fast. Mr. Miller helped you apply for a scholarship." "Without my permission?" "No," Lucas protested. "Well, yes, but he said I had to talk to you about it first. But then Mr. Ramirez said the deadline was yesterday, and Mr. Miller helped me with the science part, and—" He trailed off at Emily's expression. "Lucas, you can't just—" "Mom, it's a really good opportunity," he interrupted, his eyes pleading. "It's the same program you always said you wish you could afford to send me to. And Mr. Miller said the scholarship would cover everything, even the bus fare." Emily felt cornered. The Summer Academy was indeed a program she'd longed to enroll Lucas in but could never afford. "Why is Mr. Miller so interested in helping you?" she asked, testing to see what her son understood about the situation. Lucas shrugged. "He says he sees potential in me and—" He hesitated. "He said I remind him of himself when he was young." The innocent comment struck Emily like a physical blow. Of course, Lucas reminded Ethan of himself. He was a carbon copy in so many ways. That night after Lucas was asleep, Emily pulled out her phone and hesitated before typing. "The Science Academy? Really?" Ethan's response came almost immediately. "He's brilliant, Emily. That mind deserves every opportunity." She replied, "You should have asked me first." A pause then. You're right, I'm sorry. I got excited about his ideas, still learning the boundaries. Another text followed quickly. If it helps, I recused myself from the selection committee the moment I realized Lucas was applying. Despite herself, Emily smiled slightly at his attempt to respect proper procedures while still helping Lucas. Her phone buzzed again. He has your determination and your integrity. You've done an amazing job with him, Emily. The simple acknowledgement of her years of sacrifice, something so rarely recognized, brought unexpected tears to her eyes. After a long moment, she texted back, "Science Club meets Thursdays at 4. If you're serious about helping, that would be an appropriate place to start." She could almost feel his restrained excitement in his reply. "I'll be there. Thank you, Emily." As she set her phone down, Emily realized that somehow, despite her best defenses, Ethan Miller was slowly finding his way back into their lives. Ethan arrived at the community center 30 minutes early on Thursday, nervously straightening his casual button-down shirt. He'd deliberately dressed down, leaving his usual designer watch and Italian leather shoes at home. The last thing he wanted was to make Lucas uncomfortable with obvious displays of wealth. Inside, he found Mr. Ramirez setting up the solar kits. "Mr. Miller. Didn't expect you so early." The teacher greeted him warmly. "Thought I might help with setup," Ethan offered, rolling up his sleeves. As they worked, Ethan casually asked, "Has Lucas always been interested in science?" "Since he started here 3 years ago," Mr. Ramirez confirmed. "That boy has a natural gift. Reminds me of myself. At that age, except he's much smarter," he chuckled. "Emily's done remarkably well with him, especially considering." When the teacher didn't continue, Ethan prompted, "Considering?" Mr. Ramirez looked uncomfortable. "Well, the challenges. Single mom, working multiple jobs sometimes. There was a rough patch when Lucas was younger. Medical bills, I think. But Emily never let it affect his education. She's quite extraordinary." Ethan absorbed this information silently, adding it to the growing picture of the life Emily and Lucas had lived while he remained ignorant of their existence. The children began arriving, Lucas among them. His face brightened when he saw Ethan. "Mr. Miller, you really came." He hesitated, then asked, "Did Mom say it was okay?" "She did," Ethan assured him, touched by the boy's concern for boundaries. "She texted me last night." For the next hour, Ethan helped the children experiment with their solar kits, particularly impressed by Lucas's intuitive understanding of the electrical components. He was so engrossed that he didn't notice Emily watching from the doorway until the session was ending. "He's good, isn't he?" she said quietly as they watched Lucas enthusiastically explaining his modifications to Mr. Ramirez. "Beyond good," Ethan replied. "He thinks like an engineer." Emily's expression softened slightly. "He gets that from you." The simple acknowledgement of their shared connection to Lucas felt like a gift. Ethan accepted it carefully, afraid to presume too much. As they walked to the parking lot, Lucas racing ahead with his friends, Emily surprised Ethan by asking, "Would you like to grab coffee? There's a place around the corner." At the small cafe, after Lucas had been settled with hot chocolate and homework at a nearby table, Emily got straight to the point. "I've been doing some thinking," she began, "and some investigating." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Investigating?" Emily pulled out her phone and showed him a series of photos. "These are from the community newspaper archives, 3 different charity events from 10 years ago. Look at the dates." Ethan examined the images, society photos showing his mother at various functions. "These were all days when I came to see you," Emily explained. "Days when your mother personally told me you were unavailable or uninterested." Ethan's stomach clenched as he realized the implications. "She lied about being with me." Emily nodded. "Thomas mentioned you returned immediately after the funeral. I checked the dates. Your father died on September 4th. I didn't discover I was pregnant until September 18th. By then, your number was already disconnected." "My mother said the reminders were too painful," Ethan said slowly. "She had all my contacts transferred to a new phone, managed all my correspondence during that time. My favorite food in the world, Ethan replied with complete honesty. College memories of late-night pasta study sessions with Emily flooded back. Emily gave him a look that suggested she remembered too. "Lucas, wash up, please." When Lucas disappeared into the bathroom, Emily asked quietly, "How did it go with your mother?" "About as expected," Ethan admitted. "She denied everything, then tried to justify it, then threatened to disown me." Emily winced. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Ethan said firmly. "I'm not." During dinner, Ethan found himself relaxing for the first time in days. Lucas dominated the conversation with enthusiastic explanations of his projects and questions about Ethan's work. Emily watched them interact, her expression softening gradually. "Mom says you knew each other in college," Lucas said suddenly, looking between them. "Were you friends?" Emily nearly choked on her water. Ethan caught her eye, silently asking permission before answering carefully. "We were very close friends. The best of friends, actually." "Why didn't you stay in touch?" Lucas asked with the direct curiosity of children. "Sometimes grown-ups lose track of each other," Emily intervened smoothly. "Life gets complicated." Lucas seemed to accept this. "Well, I'm glad you found Mom again. She needs more friends. She works too much." Ethan's heart ached at the simple observation. "I think you're right about that, Lucas." After dinner, as Lucas returned to his room to finish homework, Emily and Ethan stood awkwardly in the small kitchen. "Thank you for dinner," Ethan said softly. "And for letting me into your home?" Emily nodded, absently wiping an already clean counter. "It means a lot to Lucas. He doesn't have many male role models." "Emily," Ethan began hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you. My mother, she's not going to make this easy. For any of us." Emily's expression hardened slightly. "I never expected she would. We've handled her interference before. We can do it again." The "we" in her statement didn't escape Ethan's notice. For the first time, Emily seemed to be acknowledging them as a unit. Not romantically, perhaps, but united in their concern for Lucas. It was a beginning. The next 2 weeks established a tentative rhythm. Ethan attended Lucas's science club sessions, occasionally joined them for dinner, and began helping with weekend science museum trips, activities that had previously strained Emily's budget. Each interaction built a little more trust between them. One rainy Saturday afternoon, Ethan arrived at their apartment with a stack of books on renewable energy for Lucas and a folder of paperwork for Emily. "What's this?" she asked, as Lucas eagerly dove into the books. "DNA test results," Ethan replied quietly. "Completely unnecessary, but I wanted everything official. Proper documentation." Emily glanced at the paperwork. 99.99997% probability of paternity, exactly as they both knew it would be. Then, at Ethan's face. "This is about legal recognition, isn't it?" Ethan nodded. "I've started the process to have Lucas legally recognized as my son. With your permission, of course." "Mom," Lucas called from his room, oblivious to the serious conversation. "This book has exactly what I need for my project. Can Mr. Miller stay and help me with it?" Emily hesitated only briefly. "Yes, if he has time." "All the time in the world," Ethan replied, his eyes still on Emily's face. Later, while Lucas was engrossed in his project, Emily and Ethan sat at the kitchen table with coffee. "Legal recognition would mean child support," Emily said carefully, "and potential custody arrangements." "I don't want to disrupt your lives," Ethan assured her, "but I do want to contribute, to make things easier for both of you." He paused. "And I want Lucas to have my name, if you agree." Emily's hands tightened around her mug. "I've been a Parker his whole life. We've been a team." "You'll always be his mother," Ethan said gently. "Nothing changes that, but he should have access to everything that's rightfully his, including his heritage." Emily was quiet for a long moment. "You've changed," she finally said. "The Ethan I knew was impulsive, passionate. You're more deliberate now." 10 years in corporate America will do that to a person, Ethan replied with a wry smile. But I'm still me, Emily. Just with better impulse control and more expensive suits. The Jensen deal is proceeding without issue. Ethan studied his mother, searching for signs of the woman who had once read him bedtime stories and encouraged his childhood experiments. Instead, he saw only the carefully constructed facade of Vivian, Miller, CEO matriarch. I have a son, he stated simply. Vivian's expression didn't change, but her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her teacup. Ridiculous. Where is this coming from? From Emily Parker, the woman whose letters you intercepted, whose calls you blocked, who came to our home at least 3 times looking for me. Ethan's voice remained controlled, despite his simmering anger. The woman who was carrying my child when you turned her away. That girl was after your money, Vivian said dismissively. A classic trap. His name is Lucas, Ethan interrupted. He's 10 years old, brilliant, loves science. Has my eyes and Emily's smile. He pulled out his phone, displaying a photo he'd taken at the science club. My son, mother, your grandson. Vivian barely glanced at the image. If this is truly your child, which I find questionable without proper testing, it changes nothing. You have responsibilities to the company, to our family name. It changes everything, Ethan corrected, his calm facade cracking. You deliberately kept me from knowing my own child. You lied to me about Emily leaving town. You manipulated both our lives for a decade. Vivian straightened, switching tactics. You were 22, Ethan. Your father had just died. The company was in transition. That girl and her pregnancy would have derailed everything we'd built. So you decided for me, Ethan said, the hurt evident beneath his anger, without even giving me the chance to make my own choice. I protected you, Vivian insisted. You weren't ready for fatherhood. That wasn't your decision to make. Ethan's raised voice caused nearby patrons to glance their way. He lowered it with effort. 10 years, Mother. 10 years I can never get back with my son. Vivian's expression hardened. And now what? You'll abandon the company your father built? Throw away your education, your position for some waitress and her child? For my family, Ethan corrected. And I'm not abandoning anything, I'm simply reordering my priorities. This infatuation will pass, Vivian said confidently. It did before. Ethan shook his head. It never passed. You just made sure I couldn't act on it. He stood, placing several bills on the table. I've scheduled a DNA test as a formality, but I don't need it to know Lucas is mine. I'm recognizing him publicly as my son, with or without your blessing. Vivian's composure finally cracked. You would shame our family name with this illegitimate. Choose your next words very carefully, Mother, Ethan warned, his voice dangerously quiet. That's my son you're speaking about. Later that evening, as Ethan pulled into the modest apartment complex where Emily and Lucas lived, he was still shaking from the confrontation. His mother's parting words echoed in his mind. If you pursue this, you're on your own, Ethan. I won't have the Miller name associated with scandal. He found apartment 3B and knocked, wondering if Emily would sense the tension still radiating from him. The door opened to reveal Lucas, grinning widely. Mr. Miller, Mom's finishing dinner. Come see my room. It's where I keep all my projects. The simple enthusiasm in the boy's invitation momentarily banished Ethan's dark thoughts. He followed Lucas into a small but tidy bedroom decorated with solar system posters and bookshelves overflowing with science books. This is mission control, Lucas announced proudly, gesturing to a desk cluttered with circuit boards, notebooks, and a partially assembled wind turbine. I'm trying to design a turbine that works efficiently in low wind conditions. Ethan examined. The design genuinely impressed. You've created a multi-blade configuration to capture more energy. That's graduate-level thinking, Lucas. The boy beamed at the praise. I've been working on it forever. Mom got me my first engineering kit when I was 7, even though we couldn't really afford it. A lump formed in Ethan's throat at this casual mention of their financial struggles he could have prevented had he known about Lucas. Hey. Emily appeared in the doorway, wearing jeans and a simple blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Dinner's ready. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti. My favorite food in the world," Ethan replied with complete honesty. College memories of late-night pasta study sessions with Emily flooded back. Emily gave him a look that suggested she remembered too. "Lucas, wash up, please." When Lucas disappeared into the bathroom, Emily asked quietly, "How did it go with your mother?" "About as expected," Ethan admitted. "She denied everything, then tried to justify it, then threatened to disown me." Emily winced. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Ethan said firmly. "I'm not." During dinner, Ethan found himself relaxing for the first time in days. Lucas dominated the conversation with enthusiastic explanations of his projects and questions about Ethan's work. Emily watched them interact, her expression softening gradually. "Mom says you knew each other in college," Lucas said suddenly, looking between them. "Were you friends?" Emily nearly choked on her water. Ethan caught her eye, silently asking permission before answering carefully. "We were very close friends. The best of friends, actually." "Why didn't you stay in touch?" Lucas asked with the direct curiosity of children. "Sometimes grown-ups lose track of each other," Emily intervened smoothly. "Life gets complicated." Lucas seemed to accept this. "Well, I'm glad you found Mom again. She needs more friends. She works too much." Ethan's heart ached at the simple observation. "I think you're right about that, Lucas." After dinner, as Lucas returned to his room to finish homework, Emily and Ethan stood awkwardly in the small kitchen. "Thank you for dinner," Ethan said softly. "And for letting me into your home?" Emily nodded, absently wiping an already clean counter. "It means a lot to Lucas. He doesn't have many male role models." "Emily," Ethan began hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you. My mother, she's not going to make this easy. For any of us." Emily's expression hardened slightly. "I never expected she would. We've handled her interference before. We can do it again." The "we" in her statement didn't escape Ethan's notice. For the first time, Emily seemed to be acknowledging them as a unit. Not romantically, perhaps, but united in their concern for Lucas. It was a beginning. The next 2 weeks established a tentative rhythm. Ethan attended Lucas's science club sessions, occasionally joined them for dinner, and began helping with weekend science museum trips, activities that had previously strained Emily's budget. Each interaction built a little more trust between them. One rainy Saturday afternoon, Ethan arrived at their apartment with a stack of books on renewable energy for Lucas and a folder of paperwork for Emily. "What's this?" she asked, as Lucas eagerly dove into the books. "DNA test results," Ethan replied quietly. "Completely unnecessary, but I wanted everything official. Proper documentation." Emily glanced at the paperwork. 99.99997% probability of paternity, exactly as they both knew it would be, then at Ethan's face. "This is about legal recognition, isn't it?" Ethan nodded. "I've started the process to have Lucas legally recognized as my son. With your permission, of course." "Mom," Lucas called from his room, oblivious to the serious conversation. "This book has exactly what I need for my project. Can Mr. Miller stay and help me with it?" Emily hesitated only briefly. "Yes, if he has time." "All the time in the world," Ethan replied, his eyes still on Emily's face. Later, while Lucas was engrossed in his project, Emily and Ethan sat at the kitchen table with coffee. "Legal recognition would mean child support," Emily said carefully, "and potential custody arrangements." "I don't want to disrupt your lives," Ethan assured her, "but I do want to contribute, to make things easier for both of you." He paused. "And I want Lucas to have my name, if you agree." Emily's hands tightened around her mug. "I've been a Parker his whole life. We've been a team." "You'll always be his mother," Ethan said gently. "Nothing changes that. But he should have access to everything that's rightfully his, including his heritage." Emily was quiet for a long moment. "You've changed," she finally said. "The Ethan I knew was impulsive, passionate. You're more deliberate now." 10 years in corporate America will do that to a person, Ethan replied with a wry smile. "But I'm still me, Emily, just with better impulse control and more expensive suits." This drew a genuine laugh from her, perhaps the first truly unguarded moment between them since their reunion. "Lucas has been asking about you," she admitted, "about why you're suddenly in our lives. He's too smart not to notice the similarities between you." "What have you told him?" "Nothing yet. I wanted to be sure." She trailed off. "Sure of what?" "Sure you were staying this time." The vulnerability in her voice struck him deeply. "I'm not going anywhere, Emily," he promised. "Not by choice, not ever again." Their eyes held for a moment too long, old feelings stirring beneath the surface of their careful co-parenting arrangement. Emily broke the contact first, standing to refill her coffee. "I think it's time we tell him," she said decisively. "Together." The moment came sooner than either expected. As Ethan helped Lucas adjust the blade angles on his wind turbine model, the boy suddenly asked, "Are you my dad?" The question, delivered with such straightforward curiosity, momentarily stunned both adults. Emily froze by the doorway where she'd been watching them. "What makes you ask that?" Ethan managed, looking to Emily for guidance. Lucas shrugged with practiced casualness that didn't disguise his intensity. "We look alike. You have the same crease between your eyebrows when you're concentrating, and you keep looking at Mom the way Mr. Wilson looks at Mrs. Wilson, like you used to be in love." Emily moved to sit beside Lucas on his bed. "You're right, Lucas. Mr. Miller is your father." Lucas absorbed this confirmation with remarkable composure. "I kind of figured. Why didn't you tell me before?" "It's complicated," Emily began, but Lucas interrupted. "Because you were mad at him for leaving." "But he didn't know about me, did he?" Ethan found his voice. "No, Lucas, I didn't. If I had known about you, I would have been here. Nothing would have kept me away." Lucas considered. "This, and so it was all a big misunderstanding, like in those movies Mom watches sometimes?" Emily smiled despite herself. "Something like that." "Can I call you Dad?" Lucas asked Ethan directly, his expression cautiously hopeful. Ethan felt his heart constrict. "I would like that very much, but only if you're comfortable with it." Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "I've been practicing in my head, actually, since last week when I figured it out." Emily looked surprised. "You've known for a week and didn't say anything?" "I was collecting data," Lucas replied seriously. "Making observations. That's the scientific method." Ethan couldn't help the laugh that escaped him, part joy, part overwhelming emotion. "You really are my son." A phone chimed and Emily checked her messages. Her expression immediately clouded. "What is it?" Ethan asked. "Mrs. Winters," Emily replied, naming their apartment. "Manager. There was a woman asking questions about us today. Expensively dressed, around 60. Said she was conducting a background check for a scholarship Lucas applied for." Ethan's jaw tightened. "My mother." "That's your grandma?" Lucas asked, eyes widening. "Technically, yes," Ethan confirmed, "though she's not acting very grandmotherly right now." "What does she want?" Lucas persisted. Ethan chose his words carefully. "She's having trouble accepting changes in our family, but that's for me to handle, not you." Later, as Ethan prepared to leave, Emily walked him to the door. Rain still pattered against the windows, creating a cozy intimacy in the small apartment. "I should have asked you first," Emily said quietly. Before confirming to Lucas, it just felt like the right moment. "It was perfect," Ethan assured her. "You know him best." Emily brushed a hand across her eyes, blinking rapidly. "It's strange. I've imagined this conversation for 10 years. Rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd explain your absence. And now? Now I'm realizing how many stories we'll have to rewrite. For Lucas. For ourselves." Ethan nodded, understanding precisely what she meant. The narratives they'd constructed to explain the past decade were crumbling, requiring new truths to replace them. "Dad!" Lucas called from his room, the title still new and wonderful on his tongue. "When can we go to where you work? I want to see the tech lab Mom said you have." "Soon," Ethan promised, unable to keep the emotion from his voice. "Very soon." As he stepped into the rain-soaked evening, Ethan felt simultaneously lighter and more grounded than he had in years. The word Dad echoed in his mind, a title more precious than CEO could ever be. The Miller Technologies headquarters dominated the Kansas City skyline, 30 floors of gleaming glass and steel testifying to the family's success. Ethan led Emily and Lucas through the lobby, acutely aware of curious glances from employees unaccustomed to seeing their CEO with a woman and child. "This place is awesome," Lucas whispered, eyes wide as he took in the cutting-edge architecture and technology displays. "Wait until you see the R&D lab," Ethan replied, guiding them toward a private elevator. As they rode up, Emily seemed increasingly uncomfortable. "Everyone's staring." "Let them," Ethan said simply. "They'll know the truth soon enough." The research and development floor buzzed with activity. Engineers testing prototypes, developers huddled over computers, whiteboards covered with equations and designs. Activity paused momentarily as Ethan entered with his guests. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Lucas and Emily Parker," Ethan announced. "They'll be visiting our facilities today." Lucas immediately gravitated toward a demonstration of miniature wind turbines, remarkably similar to his own designs. A young engineer began explaining the technology, clearly delighted by the boys' insightful questions. "He fits right in," Emily observed, watching Lucas engage confidently with the staff. "Miller blood," Ethan said with quiet pride. "This building exists because of my father's vision, but these innovations, sustainable energy solutions, those were my dreams in college, dreams I shared with you." Emily nodded, remembering. "You wanted to create technologies that would help people, not just profits." "I still do," Ethan replied. "It just got complicated after my father died." While Lucas was thoroughly occupied with the engineering team, Ethan led Emily to his office on the top floor. The space was impressive but surprisingly modest for a CEO of his stature. "This was my father's," he explained, gesturing to an antique desk by the window. "The only piece of furniture I kept when I renovated the office." Emily approached it, running her fingers along the polished wood. "Samuel Miller. I never met him." "He would have liked you," Ethan said with certainty. "He valued authenticity above all else." Her attention was drawn to a small wooden box on the desk. "What's this?" Ethan hesitated. "Something I found yesterday, in my mother's study at the estate." He opened the box, revealing a stack of unopened envelopes. "Letters. From you." Emily's breath caught as she recognized her own handwriting. "She kept them? All of them," Ethan confirmed grimly. "Never opened, but preserved, like evidence." Emily picked up the top envelope with trembling fingers. The postmark dated at 10 years earlier, her first attempt to reach Ethan after discovering her pregnancy. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why keep letters she never intended to deliver?" "Control," Ethan replied, his voice hardening. "My mother has built her life around controlling the Miller narrative. These were insurance, proof she had protected me if I ever discovered the truth." Emily set the letter down, disturbed. "Your mother is a formidable woman." "She's manipulative and calculating," Ethan corrected. "And she's not finished yet." Before Emily could respond, Ethan's assistant appeared at the door. "Mr. Miller, your mother is here. She's quite insistent on seeing you immediately." Ethan straightened, jaw tight. "Perfect timing. Please show Mrs. Miller in." Emily moved to leave. "I should get Lucas." "Stay," Ethan requested, his hand lightly touching her arm. "Please, it's time we faced her together." Vivian Miller entered like a commanding general, elegant in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Emily's monthly rent. She faltered momentarily upon seeing Emily, her practiced smile freezing in place. I wasn't aware you had company, Ethan, she said coolly. Mother, you remember Emily Parker? Ethan replied, his tone deliberately casual. Vivian's gaze raked over Emily dismissively. Vaguely. Miss Parker, isn't it? Or is there a husband somewhere? It's Ms. Parker, Emily replied evenly. And no, I've been raising my son alone. Our son, she corrected, glancing at Ethan. Ah yes, the child, Vivian said. That's actually why I'm here, Ethan. The board is concerned about these sudden family revelations. The timing with the Jensen merger proceeding is particularly unfortunate. The timing has nothing to do with business, Ethan countered, and everything to do with rectifying a decade-long injustice. Vivian sighed dramatically. Always so melodramatic. I've scheduled a private meeting with the board tomorrow to discuss the situation. Your presence is required. I'll be there, Ethan agreed, with documentation officially recognizing Lucas as my son and heir. Vivian's composure slipped momentarily. Heir? Don't be absurd. The boy isn't even a Miller. He will be, Ethan replied firmly. I've already started the legal process. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Vivian suggested, with a pointed, look at Emily. Anything you have to say can be said in front of Emily, Ethan insisted. In fact, I think it's time we all acknowledge the truth. He picked up the box of letters. Starting with these, Vivian stiffened at the sight of the box. You were in my study. I was looking for answers, Ethan confirmed. And I found them. Years of intercepted communications, proof that Emily tried repeatedly to tell me about my son. I did what was necessary, Vivian stated, unapologetic. You were grieving, vulnerable. This woman would have derailed your entire future with her inconvenient pregnancy. Emily flinched at the callous description of her pregnancy with Lucas, but held her ground. You had no right to make that decision for either of us. I had every right, Vivian snapped, her careful facade cracking. The Miller legacy was at stake. Ethan was destined for greater things than playing house with a scholarship girl from nowhere. The cruelty of the statement hung in the air. Ethan moved to stand beside Emily, his posture protective. You're wrong, Mother. The greatest thing I could have done was be a father to my son. And you robbed me of that for 10 years. I protected you, Vivian insisted. You controlled me, Ethan corrected. But that ends now. The standoff was interrupted by Lucas bounding into the office, followed by an apologetic assistant. Dad, the engineers said my turbine design might actually work better than theirs for microgeneration in urban environments. He stopped abruptly, sensing the tension. Oh, sorry. I didn't know you had a meeting. Vivian stared at the boy, seeing the unmistakable Miller features for the first time in person. For a brief moment, something almost like regret crossed her face. Lucas, Ethan said carefully. This is my mother, Vivian Miller, your grandmother. Lucas studied the elegant woman with open curiosity. Hello, Mrs. Miller. It's nice to meet you. Vivian seemed momentarily at a loss, a rare occurrence for the formidable businesswoman. Before she could respond, her phone chimed with a text message. She checked it, her expression darkening. We'll continue this discussion at the board meeting, she told Ethan coldly. The situation is more complicated than you realize. With a final dismissive glance at Emily and Lucas, she swept from the office. Is she always that scary? Lucas asked after she'd gone. Despite the tension, Emily couldn't help but laugh. Pretty much. Ethan knelt to Lucas's level. Don't worry. About my mother. What's important is that we're together now. He glanced up at Emily, including her in his next words. And no one is going to separate us again. The Miller Technologies boardroom epitomized corporate power, 20 seats of supple leather surrounding a gleaming mahogany table, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city views. Ethan had spent countless hours here negotiating deals and charting company strategy. But today felt different. Today was personal. His mother had arrived early, speaking quietly with several board members. Their expressions suggested the conversation wasn't casual, When Ethan entered, conversations halted abruptly. Ethan, Gerald Jensen, his father's oldest friend and senior board member, greeted him. "Quite the situation you've found yourself, and not a situation, Gerald, a son." Ethan placed his briefcase on the table. "My son." Vivian took her seat, immaculately composed. "We've been discussing the implications of your recent revelations. The board has concerns about timing and authenticity." "Authenticity?" Ethan repeated sharply. "There are questions," Jensen interjected, "about whether this boy is truly your son, or if this might be an opportunistic claim." Ethan felt his temper rising but kept his voice level. "I've provided DNA confirmation. Lucas is unquestionably my son. DNA can be manipulated," Richard Porter, another board member, suggested. "And the timing, right before the Jensen merger announcement, seems calculated." "By whom?" Ethan demanded. "I discovered Lucas by coincidence. Emily Parker has never asked for money or recognition." "Yet," Vivian added pointedly, "her circumstances are modest. The temptation of the Miller fortune would certainly be significant." Ethan slammed his hand on the table, his carefully maintained composure cracking. "Enough. Emily raised my son alone for 10 years because you," he pointed directly at his mother, "deliberately kept us apart. She's never asked for anything." "Your emotional involvement is concerning," Jensen observed. "The company needs clear-headed leadership, especially now. Then perhaps it's best if you temporarily step back from day-to-day operations," Vivian suggested smoothly. "Until this matter is resolved." Ethan stared at his mother in disbelief. "You're trying to push me out?" "Not out," she corrected. "Just sidelined until we determine the best approach to this potential scandal." "There is no scandal," Ethan insisted. "Only a father recognizing his son." The conference room phone rang, interrupting the tense exchange. Ethan's assistant's voice came through the speaker. "Mr. Miller, there's an urgent situation requiring your attention. It's regarding Ms. Parker and Lucas." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What's happened?" "Reporters, sir. At least a dozen. They've surrounded Ms. Parker's apartment building. Someone leaked the story to the press." Ethan looked directly at his mother, whose expression remained impassive, but whose eyes held a calculating gleam. "I need to go," he announced, gathering his materials. "The meeting isn't finished," Vivian objected. "Yes, it is." Ethan paused at the door. "And so is your interference in my life. You've manipulated your last Miller, Mother." As he rushed from the building, Ethan's phone filled with notifications, news alerts about the Miller Technologies air scandal, already trending across social media. The family war had gone public. By the time Ethan reached Emily's apartment complex, the media circus was in full swing. News vans lined the street. Reporters with microphones clustered at the entrance. Security guards attempted to maintain order while residents complained about the disruption. Using the building's back entrance, Ethan finally made it to apartment 3B. The scene inside broke his heart. Lucas huddled on the couch, Emily frantically packing a suitcase. "They've been calling nonstop," she explained, her face pale with tension. "Someone gave them my personal number. They're even contacting Lucas's school." "This ends now," Ethan promised, pulling out his phone to call his security team. Lucas looked up with wounded eyes. "A reporter showed up at Science Club. She asked if I was excited about being a real Miller now." The other kids were staring at me. Ethan sat beside his son, putting an arm around his thin shoulders. "I'm so sorry, Lucas. This isn't what I wanted." "Is this what it's always like to be rich and famous?" Lucas asked quietly. "No," Ethan assured him. "This is what happens when people try to hurt other people using money and power, but it won't last." Emily paused her packing, her expression distraught. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. We're being treated like some kind of scandal. Our lives turned into tabloid fodder." A text message alert sounded on Emily's phone. She checked it, then wordlessly handed it to Ethan. It was a link to an online article. "Gold digger mom hid Miller heir for decade, sources say." The source was quoted extensively about Emily's supposed schemes to extract money from the Miller fortune. "My mother," Ethan muttered, recognizing Vivian's calculated phrasing in the quotes. It doesn't matter who, Emily replied, her voice hollow. What matters is that Lucas is suffering. This was a mistake, Ethan, all of it. Don't say that, Ethan pleaded. We can fix this. How? Emily challenged, gesturing to the chaos outside. Your mother controls the narrative, the company, the media. We're outmatched. Where are you going? Ethan asked, noticing the suitcases. My sister's in Oklahoma, just until things calm down. The realization that they were running, that his mother was effectively driving them away again, filled Ethan with cold fury. Please don't go, he said softly. Not again, not like this. Dad? Lucas's voice was small. I don't want to leave. I have the science competition next week. Emily sank into a chair, the fight draining from her. I don't know what's best anymore. I thought I was protecting him all these years, but now. Ethan knelt before her, taking her hands in his. Let me fix this. I know how to handle my mother, the media, all of it. Can you? Emily asked, doubt heavy in her voice. They're already painting me as a gold digger, Lucas as an illegitimate complication, you as an irresponsible playboy. The damage is done. Only if we let it be, Ethan insisted. Trust me, Emily, one last time. A knock at the door startled them all. Through the peephole, they saw Thomas, Ethan's driver, looking distressed. Mr. Miller, Thomas said when they opened the door. The board has called an emergency meeting. They're voting on your temporary removal as CEO. Emily and Ethan exchanged glances. His determined, hers resigned. Looks like your mother is winning, Emily said quietly. No, Ethan replied with newfound resolve. She's just shown me exactly what I need to do. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. It's time to change the narrative. For the first time in days, a spark of hope flickered in Emily's eyes. The Grand Plaza Hotel's conference room buzzed with anticipation as journalists from every major news outlet in Kansas City assembled, drawn by the cryptic press advisory from Miller Technologies. Major announcement regarding company leadership and future direction. At precisely 10 a.m., Ethan entered the room, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit. The crowd expected him to be alone. Instead, Emily and Lucas walked beside him. The flashes of cameras intensified as they took their places at the podium. Thank you all for coming, Ethan began, his voice steady and confident. I've called this press conference to address the speculation surrounding my family and to clarify my position with Miller Technologies. He gestured to Emily and Lucas. This is Emily Parker and her son Lucas, my son. 10 years ago, through circumstances beyond either of our control, Emily and I were separated. I never knew she was pregnant. I never knew I had a son. The room grew silent as journalists sensed the raw emotion beneath his professional demeanor. 2 weeks ago, by what some might call fate, I discovered Lucas's existence. Since then, I've been working to establish a relationship with my son and to make amends for my unwilling absence in his life. Ethan paused, his gaze sweeping the room. Unfortunately, certain parties have attempted to twist this family reunion into something tawdry and scandalous. Let me be absolutely clear. Emily Parker never hid my son from me. She tried repeatedly to contact me when she discovered her pregnancy. Those attempts were deliberately intercepted. The reporters leaned forward, sensing the bombshell about to drop. I have evidence that communications between Emily and myself were systematically blocked. Letters were intercepted, visits denied, all to prevent me from learning about my son. Ethan's voice hardened. This was not only a personal betrayal, but potentially corporate malfeasance as it involved misuse of company resources. A murmur swept through the crowd as journalists furiously took notes. As of this morning, I have voluntarily stepped down as CEO of Miller Technologies while an independent investigation proceeds. This is not an admission of wrongdoing on my part, but rather a commitment to transparency and accountability. Ethan placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder. My priority now is my family. I am officially and publicly acknowledging Lucas Parker as my son and heir. I am establishing a trust for his education and future, and I am filing for joint custody, with Emily's blessing. He looked at Emily, who nodded her confirmation, her expression a mixture of amazement and cautious hope. I will not allow my family to be used as pawns in a corporate power struggle, nor will I permit my son's reputation to be tarnished by manufactured scandal. Ethan's voice rang with conviction. The Miller name stands for integrity. At least it will while I have any say in the matter. As questions erupted from the journalists, Lucas tugged at Ethan's sleeve. Ethan bent down and the boy whispered something in his ear. Smiling, Ethan adjusted the microphone. My son would like to say something. Lucas stepped forward, nervous but determined. I just want everyone to know that I'm proud to be Dad's son, and Mom has been the best mom ever. That's all. The simple statement, delivered with a child's unvarnished honesty, accomplished what no carefully crafted press release could have. In that moment, the Miller scandal transformed into a human story of family reunion and redemption. Outside, watching the press conference on a monitor in her car, Vivian Miller's perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms as she realized her son had outmaneuvered her at last. The fallout from the press conference was swift and far-reaching. Public opinion, initially manipulated against Emily, swung dramatically in her favor as the story of the separated lovers and their reunited family captured the public's imagination. Social media erupted with supportive hashtags, and even Miller. Technology's stock recovered after an initial dip, as consumers responded positively to Ethan's display of integrity. In Emily's modest apartment, now mercifully free of lurking reporters, Ethan spread blueprints across the kitchen table. It's not too big, he assured her, noting her overwhelmed expression. Just 4 bedrooms, an open floor plan, and yes, a dedicated lab space for Lucas. Emily studied the plans for the house Ethan had purchased, a comfortable home in a good school district, midway between her workplace and Miller Technologies. It's beautiful, she admitted. But Ethan, we can't accept this, it's too much. It's not a gift, Ethan clarified. It's Lucas's home too. I want him to have stability, space for his projects, a yard. He hesitated. The guest house in back would be yours. Your own space, completely separate if that's what you want. Emily's eyes widened. You'd live in the main house? You're serious about this co-parenting arrangement? Completely serious, Ethan confirmed. I've missed 10 years, Emily. I don't want to miss a single day more. Lucas burst in from his bedroom, waving a tablet. Dad, the Science Academy emailed. I got in. For real this time, not because of you-know. Ethan high-fived his son, their matching smiles making Emily's heart twist with emotions she wasn't ready to name. Did you see the part about the presentation? Lucas continued excitedly. Each student presents their research to the whole academy. You'll be amazing, Emily assured him, ruffling his hair. Later, after Lucas had gone to bed, Emily and Ethan sat on her small balcony, the night air warm around them. The board meeting is tomorrow, Ethan said quietly. The independent investigator's report will be presented. Are you worried? Emily asked. No, Ethan replied. The evidence against my mother is substantial. Letters, security logs, witness statements from staff. He smiled grimly. She was thorough in her deception. I'll give her that. Emily studied his profile in the dim light. What will happen to her? Removal from the board, most likely. Possibly legal consequences, though I'm not pushing for that. Ethan sighed. She's still my mother, despite everything. And you? Emily asked softly. Will you go back as CEO? Ethan turned to face her. Do you think I should? The question caught Emily off guard. It's not my place to say. It is, Ethan insisted. You're Lucas's mother. We're building a life together, not romantically perhaps, but as a family. Your opinion matters to me, Emily. It always has. The sincerity in his voice transported her back to college days when this man had valued her insights above all others, before life and manipulation tore them apart. I think, she said carefully, that you should do what makes you happy. Lucas and I will support you either way. Ethan reached across the space between them, his hand covering hers. The touch was gentle, undemanding, yet electric with possibility. 10 years ago, he said softly, all I wanted was a life with you, a chance to build something meaningful together. His eyes held hers. Some dreams don't die, Emily. They just wait for the right moment to be reborn. As city lights twinkled below them, Emily didn't pull her hand away. A small gesture that felt like the first step on a new path neither had anticipated, but both were increasingly willing to explore. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass of St. Mary's Cathedral, casting jeweled patterns across the marble floor. Emily sat in the back pew, watching as Ethan knelt at his father's memorial plaque in the small chapel dedicated to prominent Kansas City families. Thank you for coming, Ethan said when he returned to her side. I needed to visit him before the board meeting. What would he have thought about all this? Emily asked, gesturing vaguely to encompass their complicated situation. He would have adored Lucas, Ethan replied without hesitation, and he would have been furious with my mother. He checked his watch. It's time. The cathedral's peaceful atmosphere felt worlds away from the tension filling the Miller Technologies boardroom. Vivian sat at one end of the table, her usual, impeccable appearance slightly diminished by dark circles under her eyes. The other board members maintained a careful distance from her, the investigation's preliminary findings having already circulated among them. Emily felt out of place in her simple dress as she took a seat at the back of the room, but Ethan had insisted on her presence. This concerns your life too, he'd said. You deserve to hear the truth acknowledged. The independent investigator, a former federal prosecutor, presented his findings methodically, documenting years of intercepted communications, falsified reports, and systematic deception orchestrated by Vivian Miller. In conclusion, he stated, there is compelling evidence that Mrs. Miller deliberately prevented contact between Mr. Ethan Miller and Ms. Parker, including concealing the existence of their child. These actions potentially constitute several civil infractions, including breach of fiduciary duty to the company. When the presentation concluded, Gerald Jensen addressed Vivian directly. Do you wish to respond to these findings, Vivian? She rose with dignity, surveying the room. I acted to protect this company and my son's future. History will vindicate my decisions. Her gaze settled on Emily. This woman and her child would have destroyed everything Samuel built. That wasn't your decision to make, Ethan replied quietly. Someone had to make it, Vivian countered. You were too blinded by infatuation to see what was at stake. What was at stake, Ethan said, his voice gaining strength, was my son, my family, my chance at happiness. Happiness? Vivian scoffed. Your father built this company through sacrifice, not by chasing happiness with the first pretty scholarship girl who caught his eye. Emily flinched, but Ethan remained calm. Dad built this company for our family, Mother, not as a replacement for it. The board voted swiftly. Vivian would be removed from all operational roles, though she would retain her shares as Samuel Miller's widow. Ethan would be reinstated as CEO, with quarterly oversight from the board for the next year. As the meeting adjourned, Vivian approached Emily, ignoring the others filing out of the room. He'll resent you eventually, she said softly, her voice carrying the absolute certainty of someone who believed their own prophecies. When the novelty wears off, when the responsibilities of parenthood interfere with his ambitions. Before Emily could respond, a small voice came from the doorway. You're wrong. Lucas stood there, Thomas the driver beside him, having brought the boy at Ethan's request. Families are supposed to make each other stronger, Lucas continued, approaching his grandmother without fear. That's what Mom always says. And now I have Dad too, so we're even stronger. Vivian stared at her grandson, this child with unmistakable Miller determination in his eyes, and for the first time something in her rigid posture softened. You look like your grandfather, she said finally, an acknowledgement that felt like the closest thing to acceptance she could offer. 1 year later, the backyard of the Miller Parker home bustled with activity as guests gathered to celebrate Lucas's 11th birthday. Children darted between tables decorated with science-themed centerpieces, while adults mingled over drinks and appetizers. Emily surveyed the scene from the kitchen window, still occasionally marveling at how much had changed. The house, neither mansion nor modest apartment but something comfortably in between, had become a true home over the past year. Her separate guest house, initially a buffer meant to maintain independence, now served primarily as her home, office, and art studio. She'd gradually migrated into the main house, a transition so natural that neither she nor Ethan had formally acknowledged it. "Need help with the cake?" Ethan asked, appearing beside her with his sleeves rolled up. Emily nodded toward the refrigerator. Lucas insisted on a model of a hydrogen fuel cell this year. "Of course he did," Ethan laughed. "Nothing says happy birthday like renewable energy technology." As they worked side by side, Emily found herself studying Ethan's profile. The corporate polish remained, but a year of fatherhood had softened his edges. He laughed more easily, now prioritized family dinners over late meetings, and had reorganized Miller Technologies' leadership structure to allow him more time at home. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked, catching her gaze. "Just thinking about how far we've come," Emily replied honestly. "A year ago, we were strangers reconnecting in a diner." "Not strangers," Ethan corrected softly. "Never that. Just interrupted." Outside, a sleek black car pulled into the driveway. Vivian Miller emerged, elegant as always, but noticeably less severe than she had been a year ago. "She came," Emily observed, surprised despite the invitation they'd extended. Ethan nodded. "Third time's the charm. Lucas will be pleased." Their relationship with Vivian remained complicated. Removed from her operational role at Miller Technologies, she'd retreated to the family estate, declining most invitations to see Lucas. But gradually, almost reluctantly, she'd begun to acknowledge her grandson, first with impersonal gifts, later with cautious interest in his academic achievements. Lucas spotted his grandmother and raced across the lawn to greet her. From a distance, Emily and Ethan watched as he excitedly showed her something on his tablet, likely his latest science project, and Vivian's usually rigid posture relaxed slightly as she listened. "He has Samuel's gift for disarming even the most formidable opponents," Ethan said with quiet pride. The party progressed with birthday traditions, presents, games, and finally the unveiling of the hydrogen fuel cell cake, which Lucas declared scientifically accurate and aesthetically pleasing to everyone's amusement. As evening approached and guests began to depart, Vivian surprised everyone by handing Lucas a small, carefully wrapped package. "This belonged to your grandfather," she said, her voice holding unusual warmth. "He would have wanted you to have it." Inside was a vintage pocket watch, inscribed with the Miller family crest. Lucas handled it with reverence, understanding its significance beyond its monetary value. "Thank you, grandmother," he said formally, using the title she preferred. Vivian nodded, then added something none of them expected. "Perhaps next weekend you might visit the estate. Your grandfather's workshop is still intact. You might find it educational." After Vivian departed and Lucas raced off to examine his gifts with his friends, Emily and Ethan found themselves alone on the patio, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Did you ever imagine this?" Emily asked, gesturing to encompass their home, the remnants of the party, their reconfigured family. "When you walked into that diner a year ago?" "Not specifically," Ethan admitted. "But I always hoped for a second chance with you, Emily. Even when I didn't know what was missing, I felt your absence." He reached for her hand, the gesture now familiar and comforting. Over the past year, they had rebuilt their relationship carefully. First as co-parents focused solely on Lucas's well-being, then as tentative friends rediscovering shared interests, and finally, in recent months, as something more. "Lucas asked me something interesting this morning," Ethan said, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "He wanted to know if we would ever get married." Emily's breath caught. "What did you tell him?" "That I was working on it," Ethan replied. his eyes meeting hers with the same intensity that had captured her heart at 20. That some stories take unexpected detours but still find their way to the right ending. As the last rays of sunlight gilded the garden where their son laughed with his friends, Emily leaned into Ethan's embrace, no longer afraid of the past, no longer uncertain about the future, but fully present in the family they had somehow, against all odds, managed to restore.